Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly cautioned. The subsequent is for academic and amusement functions best. That is the verbatim federal courtroom. Testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as said through reliable sources, what drove Keanu Reeves, one in Al Hollywood's most personal and respected actors, to interrupt his mythical silence. What weird request from Sean Diddy Combs triggered Keanu to write now's advertise with the track mogul and probably report his worries to authorities? And why is that this testimony being referred to as the final nail in the coffin for Diddy's protection in a beauty film provent that has left the amusement industry reeling? Keanu Reeves, known for his intensely private nature and cautious selection of expert associations, has taken the witness stand in the ongoing federal case against Sean Diddy Combs. For many years, Reeves has maintained a recognition as considered one of Hollywood's most genuine, humble, and ethical figures, carefully warding off the enterprise's darker corners and notorious personalities. Hadn't seemed as a publicity seeker, had not come forward as someone with a grudge. Reeves arrived as a reluctant witness who ought to now not stay silent. Approximately a disturbing interaction that crossed professional and personal limitations and approaches that left him deeply to proximately the welfare of other seeds. Have spent my profession looking to focus on paintings and preserve privateness. Reeves stated, his commonly calm demeanor fairly strained, but there are remnants while silence becomes untenable when what you've got witnessed show styles that might harm susceptible. The decision to testify wasn't made rapidly in line with the sets closed to the actor. Reeves consulted with his longtime advisors and prison team for agreeing to provide testimonial proximity and stumble upon that came about several years ago, an encounter that he defined as profoundly stressful and in contrast to something I have experienced in my 30+ years in the amusement industry. I few are finding this record's treasured lees. Take a second to love this video, then enroll in our channel for extra breaking trends in this ongoing case. The federal court docket fell in tauntier silence as Keanu Reeves becomes worn inside the overhead lights regarded to intensify, illuminating the actor's somber expression and the visibly pain he felt being inside the spotlight. Beneath such situations, lawyers on both facets straightened in their chairs, even as Diddy, seated at that protection desk, maintained a carefully managed expression that betrayed no emotion no person anticipated. Keanu Reeves voluntarily testified. The room changed into anxious eyes targeted on the witness stand until Reeves settled into his seat, his normalized sicker posture now rigid with obvious tension. Gasps echoed through the gallery of the side regarded, momentarily taken aback through the gravity that Reeves delivered to the lawsuits. No declaration, napa written assertion, just Keanu Reeves getting ready to speak about something he actually wished he never had to cope with publicly. Until that second, Reeves had maintained his characteristic distance from Hollywood controversies and scandals. However, something had modified. Maybe became the mounting testimony from different witness. Perhaps it was seeing the patterns of alleged behavior that matched his very own experience. Maybe it became a spatting that his silence would possibly permit similarly damage. Something it changed into. Keanu Reeves was accomplished maintaining this particular come across to himself. Hewent taking the stand as a superstar turned into there as a witness to behavior thought he located deeply troubling from effective industry figure, and while hesitated out to talk, the courtroom wasn't prepared for the comparison between Reeves' commonly understated way and thrilling nature of what he described due to the fact what Keanu Reeves found out approximately's interplay with Diddy, the uncommon request, and the context surrounding it wasn't simply extraordinary. It changed into a part of what prosecutors have been establishing as a pattern of controlling manipulative duck that prolonged throughout Diddy's professional and private relationships. It began like any other day of that trial. The room buzzed with low conversations. The clicking hunched in their unique rows, and attorneys whisper and strategies as they waited for what become listed on the docket as person witness number 7. However, while the Bayfo announced Keanu Reeves, the room modified. You can pay attention. A pin drop. A few people concept it became a mistake. Others notion it changed into a case of flawed identification. However manner, Keanu walked deliberately To Theston, his expression grave, however, resolved and firmed anyone this turned into real. The judge raised an eyebrow, and Diddy, who'd been reviewing documents together with his felony team, appeared up his generalified demeanor, faltering for only a second before he regained his composure. Keanu took the oath, no eye touch with defense desk. He did not even glance in Diddy's direction. I recognized this testimony might also appear surprising. Keanu started. I've constantly valued privacy, each mine and others. However, there are rare occasions, whilst last silent service nobody, the decide allowed him to preserve from. That moment on, the entire trial shifted, because what Keanu was approximately to say wasn't a part of any media narrative. It wasn't a social media rumor. It turned into something that had simply weighed on his moral sense. The prosecutor approached respectfully. Mr. Reeves, should you please inform the court about your expert courting with the defendant? Keanu nodded, his feature thoughtfulness glowing. In his measured response, I have regarded Mr. Combs peripherally for years through enterprise occasions. We haven't ever worked together directly. In 2018, we both attended a charity event in Los Angeles. It was there that he approached him, probably participating on a movie assignment. His corporation changed into developing Dand. Did this professional discussion preserve past that occasion? The prosecutor asked. Sure. Keanu responded at Merkel's invitation. I agreed to meet at his Los Angeles residence to discuss the task. Similarly, I was instructed other creative companions would be gift. When I arrived, I discovered it became simply our Combs and numerous individuals of his household personnel. The prosecutor nodded on what occurred in the course of this assembly. Reeves. Keanu took a deep breath, visibly uncomfortable with the general public nature of his testimony, but committed to offering it as it should be. The meeting started normally with discussions about the undertaking. However, speedy shifted to what Mark Holmes referred to as a test of loyalty and connection that he claimed become necessary earlier than operating collectively. I have been in this enterprise for decades, he said. I have had unusual conferences. I have encountered district personalities. I've been a sketo, take part in unconventional precs, but nothing organized me for what came about that afternoon. He turned slightly closer to the jury, his soreness obvious. However, his clear what commenced us. A well-known, innovative assembly have become something totally exceptional. Keanu advised court that it commenced like many Hollywood conferences do, with informal communication and networking. It commenced apparently valid interpersonals. The manner they framed it, it was imagined to be approximately a movie undertaking, calming song and motion, generous pre-forward entertainment. In district liberation, I'd been approached to the fact they desired to elevate the undertaking, so I did not query the invitation. However, the moment Keanu arrived Diddy's residence, he knew something turned into off. The estate had strangely tight safety protocols. All electronic gadgets had been gathered upon access. Theblins had been drawn no matter at Bayonne. The second I requested about Theodar innovative companions who have been purported to attend, there has been a vague explanation about scheduling conflicts that need to were the primary pink flag. The stated it became for privateness reasons, you understand. To protect the innovative power, Budet felt like something else like and surroundings designed for manage alternative Ellen collaboration. He become led through a series of an increasing number of personal regions oft house the atmosphere have become more and more stressful. There have been personal individuals who seem to be tracking greater than helping. It felt like everybody was following the script, except for him. Keanu stated that after approximately 30 minutes of superficial dialogue, approximate teleth project, Diddy's demeanor shifted dramatically. He brushed off his personnel with a hand gesture, and once we were by myself, said something like the actual test off whether or not someone belongs in my inner circle isn't always about skills. It is approximately act as true with and submission to a imaginative and prescient. The courtroom remained silent as Keanu persisted. He then led me to an adjacent room wherein there has been a large bath filled with water. He defined that this became water he had these days bathed in, and the Tony body in his authentic circle participate in what he referred to as a purification ritual. Thought validated their willingness to come to be one together with his essence. Keanu paused, his soreness obvious. Mr. Combs informed Me that bathing in his used water became a demonstration of loyalty and notion in his superior power. He defined that many a hit humans inside the tumpry industry had participated on this ritual, and that it turned into part of why they'd accomplished desis. He persisted, recounting Diddy's specific words: "This water contains my energy, my achievement, my strength, through Emerson Jeer. Self in it, you are displaying your recognized hierarchy and are willing to absorb what I have already blessed. Danyon, who is simply successful in my circle, has finished. This it is how I know actually believes." Keanu described his reaction. "I declined without delay and honestly. I stated that I wasn't comfortable with the request and I favored to preserve our court in strictly expert." Mr. Kamas initially regarded amused via my refusal. Asif. He expected it, but changed into a short "may want to conquer my objections." The most dramatic revelation got here, while Keanu described what occurred next after I moved closer to the door, indicating I used to be prepared to leave. Mr. Coombs' demeanor changed completely. He stated, "You don't apprehend how this works. No person walks fair away from an opportunity one offer. Ask absolutely everyone within the industry about the outcomes of disrespecting me. The chance wasn't expressed, however, the implication become unmistakable." Leku said he followed Diddy returned to the fundamental room, hoping to de-escalate the state of affairs and go away without similarly incident. As an alternative, what he witnessed stirred him even greater. There were pics displayed showing numerous brighties in abnormal, seeming ritualistic eventualities. Some concern Adreka global industry figures in uncomfortable-looking conditions. Some are guarded to be taken without Thesu's attention. There had been others that Diddy defined as his coverage against disloyalty. Paused, maintaining his composure through scene effort. I failed to absolutely apprehend what I used to be seeing, and that changed into unnerving in itself. Keanu continued, his voice steady but surely, suffering from the memory when I refused his request and organized to depart. Diddy have become more and more insistent, announcing sick things as you do not apprehend the possibility you are rejecting, and there's a motive. I have maintained my role in this industry for decades. He thought the state of affairs could not grow to be extra unsettling until Diddy made a telephone call in his presence. It was on speaker. The man or woman who spoke back addressed Diddy with unusual distinction. I nearly did not system what I used to be listening to, but that communication changed into truly about a persona had made the wrong preference. Recent Lidley stated something like, "Ensure the scenario is treated the same way as ultimate time complete removal, complete silence." There was no explicit mention of what became being handled, but the context felt threatening. Keanu testified that the implied threat made him examine his know-how of enterprise power dynamics. I've been lucky to have great autonomy in my profession. That communique made me comprehend that oath is probably navigating much more managed and doubtlessly coercive relationships of their very last interplay beer. Keanu left the house. Diddy's way shifted once more. Becco being superficially friendly, but with an underlying anxiety, he said something like, "I recognize your preference today, however. Remember that on this enterprise, doors that close live closed reflect on consideration on what side of the door you want to be on." The declaration become introduced with a smile. However, there was not anything really hitabuti. He stated, "It is." Whilst the diffused stress campaign began, I might get calls from numerous industry figures asking about my issue with Diddy. I maintained professions limitations. Then, unexpectedly, there had been rumors circulating approximately mebbing hard on set about having generational needs, about being in tissue with colleagues. I knew what turned into it was a coordinated attempt. Diddy did not want to contact me without delay. He had a community that might observe pre-shoring so for years. Keanu stated nothing publicly. He persevered his work, maintained his professionalism, focused in tasks with collaborators. Here lied on, however, once I saw reports approximators who had been located in uncomfortable positions, who have been requested to participate in unusual rituals assessments of loyalty. I identified the pattern from my personal experience. He appeared around the court. He wasn't just building a business empire. He became a growing an environment wherein compliance turned into anticipated and wondering changed into topinished, and that Keanu said, became what subsequently brought me to courtroom. Keanu glanced at the jury and leaned closer. Tough Mike, it wasn't simply the ordinary request that turned into simply the maximum visible component, he said from that moment forward. Hannah test diffused but meaningful modifications in how certain projects were developed, how a few collaborations. Suddenly Felvia, how precise opportunities to steer, he explained that. Messages might come via numerous channels reminders, that the enterprise is smaller than you observed, and that bridges burn at half, an effect on all people round you, while Hamantiant. His distance from Diddy's initiatives and pals, Mattis could shift behind the curtain, I decline involvement. In something connected to Mark Holmes on Monday, and via Thursday, I would discovered that an unrelated mission had done at once misplaced investment. He stated this didn't occur a few times, it became a recognizable pattern. He didn't need to make specific threats, he had a system Pat did it for him. His impact prolonged into studios, manufacturing groups, financing he knew, who to Nama he knew a way to. Create barriers that seemed coincidental, however, observed a clear sample of consequence for the ones woe. Did not align with his expectations. Skion's voice remained regular, but took in a deeper depth. I stayed silent about this experience for years. I convinced myself it was an rematted incident, perhaps exaggerated in Minotian, however. Then the allegations from Mothers started out to surface, he stated, the first time. He heard comparable bills from different witnesses. He turned into struck by means oft parallels. Then I obtained a name from the prosecution group, no longer a summons. An inquiry, they stated, Mr. Riva, several witnesses have defined experiences with ritual requests involving water. We recognize you may have information relevant to organizing a pattern of behavior. He defined feeling a profound experience of obligation. I did not know my experience could be relevant to a larger case, however. Once I understood that others swear located in comparable or greater sieve conditions, the entirety linked. Keanu stated he spent numerous days in deep reflection before agreeing to testify. The uncommon requests, the implied threats. Following industry strain, it became clear that what I experienced wasn't an isolated incident or an eccentric second. It changed into part of a method, he stated. The breaking point wasn't worry, it turned into ethical obligation. I realized that if I remained silent at the same time as others were coming ahead at excellent private chance, I might be complicit in permitting this conducto. Maintain my position within the industry affords me a sure protection that others may not have. With that safety comes responsibility, he advised. Courtroom, he spoke back to that prosecution's inquiry after cautious attention. I told them I have direct in with behavior that appears to healthy the sample you're investigating. I am willing to testify to what he witnessed firsthand. He looked at Thedry. I wasn't just a person who declined an uncommon request. I used to be a witness to what appears to be a systematic approach to setting up manage and dominance in expert relationships. Then held briefly in the direction of the defense desk's expression, not indignant, however resolute, and the pattern of behavior defined by other witnesses is steady with what Ty experienced individually. For his very last declaration, the judge allowed Keanu to contextualize his testimony. He remained seated, his characteristic calm, partial arrested. This is not about one uncommon request. He started out, you have built a career in developing the advent of valid commercial enterprise and innovative opportunities. That Latour revealed special expectations you. Known as it a ritual, you called it a take a look at of loyalty, you referred to as it an opportunity. But what I found become entry to set up dominance and manage. The defense group whispered urgently to every different. Diddy maintained this composed expression, even though his ice being no means met. Keanu's eye witnessed how quick professional opportunity cold work into something unsettling. Iskald, the subtle approaches impact can be wielded to pressure compliance. I observed how rejection of unusual men's caused coordinated outcomes. You created structures where people felt they could not say no without risking their livelihoods. And Keanu referenced his lengthy profession in the entertainment industry. I've been lucky to paintings with hundreds of innovative professionals over decades. What Ty experienced in your home wasn't eccentric creativity or unusual network. It became something basically one of a kind. Keanu addressed said jury without delay. If you think this is just about an uncomfortable assembly or only abnormal request, you are lacking theological context. This seems to be part of a technique designed to pick out what can be controlled and who might face up to, and people structures depend upon most humans, deciding on silence over the expert chance of speak out. Then Har returned his interest to the court docket as a whole. The request to bathe in used water wasn't about purification. From what I've now heard from different witnesses, seems to have been approximately listing up a mental dynamic where uncommon compliance will become normalized. Finished his testimony and sat lightly looking forward to any further questions, and Diddy maintained his composed expression, but the assured demeanor that had characterized his courtroom appearance seemed dwindled because testimony from Simeon with Keanu Reeves' recognition and credibility wasn't something his defense had anticipated. While Keanu finished his testimony, he failed to look effective. He burned like someone who had executed a difficult, however important, civic obligation. The court docket remained stressful, processing the implications of his statements from such a reputable supply. Even the Diddy regarded to be weighing the testimony with specific care. Some of the jurors were visibly affected by the account, and the protection crew changed into already in hurried session, approximately away to Technicago exam. Keanu did not have interaction with the clique. While he exited, he didn't make statements, failed to renounce the cameras. He walked out of the courthouse with the same dignified reserve that has characterized his public persona through his career. While requested Latarby using reporters if he worried approximately effects, he repeatedly and swed. Some subjects transcend proficiency considerations. This turned into onofdom, but out of doors, the court docket Hollywood turned into most effective beginning to system consequences. Studio executives held emergency conferences. Public members of the family teams drafted contingency statements. Industry figures with recognized connections to Diddy started issuing carefully worded statements expressing surprise. Andre evaluation of their relationships at the back of closed doorways. Crisis management troops have been activated. Publicists suggested clients to distance themselves from Thakase, and even as many enterprise insiders attempted to project wonder. Social media become already connecting dots between beyond rumors and contemporary destiny. Antique interviews in which Diddy discussed his loyalty assessments have been by examined. Purple carpet interaction schweiern. Certain celebrities regarded and comfort in his presence received new context, and most importantly, the enterprise's long-standing whisper networks about unusual rituals amongst their energy players have been gaining public visibility. The public wasn't just taken aback by using the allegations. They had been in particular moved through the fact that a person with Keanu Reeves' well-established integrity and reluctance to interact in industry politics had felt compelled to come back forward, that the commonly personal actor had chosen to communicate publicly about this kind of weird stumble upon lent brilliant credibility to the accounts of much less set-up witnesses. The technology of unconditional electrocipher enterprise titans became dealing with a critical project, and as this case keeps to develop, we'll deliver you the maximum accurate updates available. In case you look at this file informative, please like and subscribe to our channel, because whenever the maximum non-public and revered figures in Hollywood experience forced to speak out, all of us want to pay attention what they're saying.